The construction jobs are 30%. That's temporary, because after it's built, those jobs are gone, and a condo doesn't bring you a job. That just brings some income for and profit for the developer.
By 2007, the housing market was hot. I know because I got divorced and started looking for an apartment to rent somewhere near downtown Brooklyn. It was shocking. I had a good job, and even I couldn't find an apartment that would eat up less than half my take-home pay. And forget about the luxury condos. They were starting at almost $400,000 for a studio and went up into the millions.
This is the phone company right here in Brooklyn. Everybody in this borough has paid their phone bill here. This is one of the huge complexes that are converting now. It's turning into condominiums. Seems like most of all the big major buildings that's down here, slowly but surely, they're being converted into lofts. And I don't think I'll know anybody personally that'll be moving here.
Buildings that had been full of professionals for decades emptied out as they were converted to condos. The workers in those offices had shopped at Fulton Mall, and suddenly they were gone.
Verizon, which is turned into Bell Lofts, was here 3 years ago with 2,000 people in the building, and we used to feed them every day, breakfast and lunch, and now they're gone, and I serve about 10, 20 construction workers instead. And I've been doing that for the last year, and actually taking money from from my family's nest egg and borrowing from family members, and just to keep the business afloat.
The big buildings over here, people are moving in who got a lot of money, so they're going to be looking for bigger stores to be opening up over here. It may shut down a lot of the smaller businesses like myself, but let's hope that these people that are moving into these big buildings will come down here and get their haircuts here. We'll keep it $10. They don't have to worry. They probably might even put a cappuccino machine in or something. What do you think, Jack?
It was nice to think there was room for everybody at Fulton Mall, but the rezoning had created a kind of real estate feeding frenzy, and some landlords were raising rents in anticipation of big chain stores coming in. One store, Diamond Girl, announced they had to close because their rent increased from $15,000 to $45,000 a month.
What happened in the downtown area, the rent is going up so rapidly that I don't think our growth is fast enough to keep us here in the downtown Brooklyn area. I think sooner or later, it's going to push us out of the downtown area.
A lot of the small business owners say my rent has, gone up so much since the rezoning, like A&B Books, for example. He says, I'm really struggling to survive. What about them?
Change is always difficult. It doesn't get accomplished overnight. It doesn't get accomplished easily. And I think smart businesses learn to adapt. And while we are completely sympathetic to the fact that people go through difficult times, that's not a reason not to change. New York is a living city. It's been transforming for the last 200 plus years, and it is going to continue to transform.
When I hear people in government say, oh, well, change happens, it's normal, let's just let it happen, I have to ask them in return, what are you doing in government? Why do we need you? We don't need somebody to sit back and say, we can't do anything, change is always good, let it happen. This passivity is really a mask for a very active promotion of new large-scale development.
Tom explained that zoning, while it might seem technical, was a powerful tool at the city's disposal, and the Bloomberg administration was using it a lot. The downtown Brooklyn rezoning was just one of 100 that together were impacting over 20% of the city, reshaping the landscape on a level unseen since Robert Moses built his giant projects in the 50s and 60s. It wasn't just commercial districts. Residential areas were targeted too, like 4th Avenue and Park Slope, not far from the mall. Michelle de la Houze, whose organization has been building affordable housing in Brooklyn for 25 years, showed me the impact of that rezoning.
This is 4th Avenue, one of the busiest streets in New York City, actually. And what happened was, the visual here is just amazing. If you turn around here, you can see above the BP sign, that was the height of all buildings, basically 4 to 5 stories. Developers were given the ability to go from 5 stories to 12 stories. Each floor has at least 4 apartments, selling for more than $700 a square foot. So literally, the city of New York handed the developer millions of dollars of buildable rights without asking for anything in return. What was here were 5 rent-stabilized properties with 48 units of housing that were affordable. And what happened was demolition and no requirement to replace those 48 units of rent-stabilized housing, no requirement whatsoever, and the creation of luxury housing. New York City is a highly segregated city, and it has only become more segregated. And the inequity has grown under this administration very, very significantly. The city of New York has literally rezoned thousands and thousands of blocks, downzoning to protect quote-unquote neighborhood character, primarily in upper middle class communities that are primarily white, and upzoning in communities primarily of color that are working class, contributing towards significant gentrification and displacement. That is not normal change. That is public policy specifically creating the change.
Well, you know who determines the agenda in New York City? The mayor, Michael Bloomberg, developers, and the speaker of the city council. They determine whether they want gentrification. They determine whether the developers are getting $100 million worth of free city money. They call it subsidies. When we get free money, it's welfare. When they get free money, it's subsidies. Well, either we're on subsidies and they're on subsidies, or we're on welfare and they're on welfare.
Subsidies were originally intended to bring investment to distressed neighborhoods. But Alyssa Katz showed me 3 luxury buildings next to the Fulton Mall that were getting big tax breaks in a hot real estate market.
To our right over here, we have the Torrin. In front of us, the Avalon Fort Greene, and to our left, the Oro. The Oro has more than 300 apartments, and each of those apartments is receiving an average of $9,000 in tax abatements every year. Okay, so while most New Yorkers have to pay real estate taxes on their housing, Oro residents don't, and they won't have to for the next 10 years.
The Oro condo would receive almost $40 million in tax breaks. The developer was not required to provide any public benefit, like affordable housing, in return.
Any one of these buildings could have arrived here and not fundamentally transformed the area. Had the approach to investing in downtown Brooklyn looked different? Had it really focused on integrating the strengths of the neighborhood that existed rather than seeing the existing community and the existing clientele of the retail as an obstacle? And it really brings up very powerful issues about race, about class, and about what New York really should be.
In fact, the Pratt Center had created an alternative plan for the area. It proposed an integrated, old meets new aesthetic, using vacant floors instead of demolishing buildings, enhancing the current retail to include hip-hop, fashion, and music, and engaging a diverse group in the planning process. These plans were shared with the Downtown Brooklyn Partnership, EDC, and City Planning, but none of these groups implemented any of the recommendations. I wondered what it would have taken for them to seriously consider the Pratt Plan.
The Bloomberg administration, the city council, and the EDC have done every possible thing they could do to help a developer make a buck in New York City.
If you don't like wealthy people or successful profit-making businesses, you're not going to have a city. We want to attract those people here. That's where we get the money to help those who are less fortunate.
If the developers have all been incentivized to come and develop this part of downtown Brooklyn, instead of just the incentive being developers, we'll give you off on your taxes. We'll give you free land. We'll give you money for infrastructure if you'll just come here and build. Why isn't it also, and developer, you will then get to build, but the part of the money you will pay us is going to go to improve things for the people who live here. And part of the incentive should have gone back to the community. And I'd like you to promise to work on that.
I'm absolutely committed to working on that. And again, what I would say is...
to succeed.
Well, let me say this. Again, when the Downtown Brooklyn plan...
Despite the pushback, the Downtown Brooklyn plan was steamrolling forward. Landlord Al LeBeau's, who owned almost an entire block of properties adjacent to the Fulton Mall, started evicting all his tenants so he could sell the block vacant for a large high-rise project.
Zoning isn't just a neutral tool. It actually increases the land value of property owners. So when the city goes in and upzones an area that big developers really want, overnight, the value of the land can increase up to 10, 20, 30, 100 times its original value.
I've gone to the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce, and I've spoken to the people in charge of development, and they told me, don't worry about it. There's nothing to worry about. We haven't even been approached about your block. This was about 6 months ago. So 5 months later, I got a note in the mail that said I must be out in 30 days.
Please take notice that you are hereby required to quit, vacate, and surrender possession of the subject premises to the landlord by September 30th, 2007. If we don't get out, LeBeau's may send a marshal here to put a chain in the door to evict us.
What we're being offered is nothing. No, nothing to relocate, nothing to move our equipment, nothing to store our equipment. So we're sort of in a bind.
Someone has bought this building with lot of money. Very soon, I think I have to move out to find out some place. I have 2 kids in college. One is in London School of Economics, and one is in Williams College, second one. I have to support them. You know, for that, I spent like, how long, 20 years to build up this business, and now I have to move. Then I might lose all the customers.
A similar situation was playing out a block away, where a new development threatened to eradicate the Albee Square Mall, the focal point of early Brooklyn hip-hop.
We are getting pushed out of our communities, and we cannot stand here and allow it to happen. We have to voice our opinions, we have to organize, and we have to fight.
The proposal struck a nerve because the site was city land, and people expected some public benefits from the new project. Instead, the developer was planning another high-rise with 1,000 units of housing, 80% of which would be luxury. The retail component failed to include space for the businesses that would be displaced, or any commitment to living wage jobs.
Good afternoon, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for giving us the opportunity. My name is Joseph Sitt. I am the biggest developer and technically the biggest beneficiary of the whole downtown Brooklyn plan.
At the center of the controversy was Joe Sitt, who had bought the lease for the Albee Square Mall in 2001. Back in 2004, he had lobbied heavily for the downtown Brooklyn plan.
We are big national developers, it's true. But unlike every other development, this is our hometown. This is where I'm born and raised, this is where I still live. This is the city that I really care so passionately about.
But Sitt never had a chance to deliver on his commitment to Brooklyn. Just weeks after the rezoning, he announced plans to sell his lease. The 37 small businesses in the mall were suddenly facing the possibility that their building would be demolished.
This is the famous Cousins Dozen coffee right here. We make our stuff fresh on the spot in the oven with a lot of love because we're Cousins Dozen. We even have Project Punch here, Mama Made Lemonade. We're coming up with another one called Ghetto Grape. Project Punch. So Equities did what they have to do as far as they sold it, because it's business, it's strictly business. But I think they should have gave us a little bit more leeway and told us what was going on so we can prepare to do something else if that's what we wanted to do.
Very soon downtown Brooklyn is going to be McDonald's, Taco Bell, and big corporations. There's not going to be no individual owners down here.
Maybe they'll have an equity firm for us that we'll be able to get money from. Yeah, I mean, we've invested money in here. We've kept this place up, and we made it also...
I invest my life here, my friend. I invest my life, 26 years, all right? When you have a business and you sell business, you get money. I got nothing.
Because the mall was on city land, the sale of Joe Sitt's lease had to be approved by the Economic Development Corporation, the organization that represents the city in all big development deals.
When Fury went out to the mall and did outreach and spoke to almost every small business owner in that mall, no one knew about this today, which is deplorable.
I lived in the downtown area that you're trying to destroy for over 45 years. I raised my children, I'm raising grandchildren. Excuse me, can I have your attention, please? Thank you. So, I'm also a vet from Vietnam. People put their life savings in business and they're going to be displaced. It's small businesses who let us put stuff on layaway. When we don't have money for food, they give us credit. Big businesses don't care. They don't know us, and they wouldn't help us. This agency is supposed to represent the people. You should all be fired.
Could the city go to sleep at night knowing that they're going to force this down the very throat of people that live in the communities? It is so unfair. And I am so angry that we have to come here out and speak and hope that we touch your hearts, that maybe when you go back to say, hey, we have to rethink it. You need to rethink it.
Thank you very much for attending.
Did you have any questions for any of the people who testified?
No, we do not.
Okay.
The Economic Development Corporation does more planning than the City Planning Department. They don't have to report to the City Council. They're basically an arm of the mayor. And what they do is negotiate deals with big developers. What happens in those negotiations is all behind closed doors. There's no sunshine in these meetings. We don't know what promises are made. It's a very shadowy portion of government. So something is really fundamentally wrong with handling development this way, taking it out of the public realm and putting it into an executive office that has no oversight.
The Economic Development Corporation approved the lease transfer. All the small businesses were evicted. The city gave the developer $3.2 million in tax breaks. And Joe Sitt walked away from downtown Brooklyn with $100 million because of the downtown Brooklyn rezoning.
I don't know, the financial details. I would guess that Joe made money off the sale of the Albee Square Mall site, as he's entitled to. He made an investment, and he got a return on that investment. I think it's a very easy thing to say that, private sector interests should not make money, but the only way they are going to invest is if there's the potential to make money.
Public-private partnerships like the Downtown Brooklyn Partnership emerged during the fiscal crises of the 1970s, when cities were abandoned by the federal government and desperate for private investment. But looking at Brooklyn today, I wondered, where was the public side of this relationship? The partnership was promoting big private development and doling out hundreds of millions of dollars in city contracts, but it was shielded from public scrutiny. For example, it got contributions from developers, but didn't have to disclose who they were.